Now this is a man who was told he was dyslexic. He probably ended up in prison or as a child, but he turned that into a gift. Right now he has 300 companies, I think. He just launched Virgin Cruise Line. Now he's saying to himself, because he is an avid believer in preserving what exists in the ocean. But he says, what do we know that's in the ocean? So he's developing this Virgin Oceanic that's going down 38,000 feet below the water. Why would he want to do that? Because he fundamentally believes that at those depths in the ocean, there's abundance of minerals and raw materials that are just there. Why aren't we taking advantage of that? And this is an interesting one. So we have wave action going on with our waters naturally, right? You realize wave action is a source of energy. Every time the wave moves, that creates energy. My question is, why aren't we capturing that? So I looked at the map of this part of the world. And you know what I find fascinating? Go from Florida through the Bahamas, all the way down to South America and all the way back up. It's a loop. You should not have a transportation problem. Because, didn't they figure it out? Key West is a series of islands. And they thought it was impossible to connect them. But they did. And we drive it every time we go to Key West. Called the 7-mile bridge. And you notice there's a seaplane as part of the loop. So you could drive one way and fly the other way back if you wish. Hurricanes. There's a Bahamian author called The Great Hurricanes of 1929, Neely. I think he's a brilliant Bahamian. He writes about hurricanes. In his books, you realize that hurricanes are all energy sources. If we could figure out a way to capture the energy from hurricanes and the amount of water that's contained, particularly in a wet hurricane, I think in his book he says, if we could capture the water that exists in a wet hurricane, we could have enough water, because it's really fresh water, to supply the Bahamas for a year in one hurricane. So don't pray hurricanes away. Actually, figure out a way in which we can capture those natural forces that has emanated as a result of the warming of the sea and the colliding of air movement. Figure out a way, how do we capture that as an energy source? Same thing with lightning. We hear lightning and thunder all the time and we wonder, oh my gosh, you go undercover. But maybe that's God's way of saying, here's another energy source you could use. The amount of lightning that comes in one bolt of lightning is sufficient to almost, I think, give enough energy to one of the family islands. So you think about that amount of energy, we're just letting it dissipate. This is one of my favorites. So the glass window bridge is a natural dam. Right? You got calm water on one side and rough water on the other side. That's what a dam is. But we drive it and we look at it and we close the bridge sometimes, not realizing that that's another energy source that's right there for us to use. So guess what they did in this is in London. They say anytime a tidal wave comes or a surge comes, we can capture that water, we're going to convert that water into energy, and it's going to allow us to either run energy plants or provide energy for parts of London. It happens to us every time we get a surge. And this is my architect's hat on. So, here's a question. Is this architecture or is this a garden? Or is it both? Who says it has to be one thing? Can you imagine? People come to the Bahamas because in our resorts, you could actually pick a fruit, you could eat a fruit, you could actually swim, you know, in the waters, fresh water and salt water is available to you. There's gardens on every balcony. You could literally hang out in nature. Why not? So one of my favorite slides, and I'm going to wrap up. So my question to all of us in this room, who are telling our children when they go off to school, and I'm just as guilty, do not come back to the Bahamas. I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. Now, I gotta admit this. I went off and it took me almost 20 years before I came back. But we need to figure out, how do we say to our kids, you know something? Look what people are doing around the world with what we have in abundance. So I'm asking you to really think about the message you send to your kids. Because we really need the scientists, the inventors, you know, those tinkerers. Because they're the ones who are going to solve some of these challenges that we're facing, using the resources that naturally exist. So if your child is going to go off to university to study engineering or bioengineering, whatever, tell the child, okay, go over there and stay for a while. But we got some challenges here, we need to help you solve. You know, you got to come back and bring your knowledge and help us figure out how we're going to solve these challenges that we're facing. I think that's an imperative we need, that's the message we need to send out to the next generation. And this is a quote from Minister Fuller, who says, if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother to teach them. Just give them a tool and let them figure out how to solve the challenges or the problems that are facing the world. And I'm hoping that today, that is what I gave you, a tool for you to figure out what to think about. How do we use the gifts that we have to sustain ourselves and to create an opportunity where, in my estimation, no Bahamian should ever wonder why they don't have anything to do. We should have so much to do that in a country like Dubai, they have 1 million citizens, 9 million expats. You know why they have the 9 million expats? Because Dubai has so much work to do, they got to bring in people to help them do it. Why aren't we doing the same thing? We got all this work and we should be saying, listen, every Bahamian is already employed, overemployed. We need some other people to come in and help us. That's just a question. So, this is time for us to have a conversation. That's me spewing. So I thought about Ministry of Works, and Melly reminded me of my dad, because my dad used to be at Ministry of Works for most of his life. So what could Ministry of Works be doing in terms of helping us address some of these challenges we're facing? Because maybe that is one of the key roles of a Ministry of Works, is to say, listen, we have a challenge with, and in this case, the planning of the country. How best should we do that? And I think if we got together with all the stakeholders and collectively come up with ideas, even the kids in primary school, you'll be surprised what they will say, because they're not inhibited by any limitation. They may come up with a thought that, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. And the same with the infrastructure. You know, it's like, every time I go to Eleuthera or Andros, I ask myself the question, if it takes me 10 minutes or 15 minutes to get to a family island, I don't have to live in Nassau. I could do business in every island of this country in a day. Why not? Affordable housing, it's one of my favorites. I think this is a great opportunity for the Ministry of Works to work in partnership with architects, engineers, contractors, realtors, insurance companies, and say, listen, we need some products of a certain affordability. And guess what? They don't need to come into Ministry of Works every time you have to do it. Because Ministry of Works would have already reviewed and approved it. It would already been costed, so you know exactly what each unit or prototype costs. You know that is, you could build it for the price that you say. And then you say to the homeowner, listen, you're paying rent now, you take your same rent and this is your home. 5 or 10 years, it's yours. Just keep paying your rent. Because the government, and I can turn to my friend here, is going to say, listen, the land, we're going to make them available. You put the product on the land, you keep paying your rent. That's all you have to do. And because of those other things, you got 1 or 2 or 3 jobs, so I ain't gonna worry about you paying your rent every month. And of course, hurricane preparedness and restoration. If hurricane's gonna come, I don't think it's, I don't know if the Lord necessarily, and I know I'm gonna be sacrilege when I say, I don't think the Lord's gonna say, pray it away. There's a reason why the hurricanes have to come. Because if the hurricanes do not come, guess what happens? The new vegetation will never grow. The wash away that needs to happen for new life to occur will never happen. So why are you telling the Lord not to do what he says he ought to do, which is cleanse out? If none of us ever die, we're the young people. There ain't no space for them. So some of us got to go in order for others to come. That's why there's a time limit for all of us. Yes, as much as you try to extend it, at some point, the Lord will say it's time for you to come. Yes? So, that's it for me. I would like to open it for a conversation because I think collectively we can solve many challenges that we're facing.
So any questions?
Be here. Stand, please.
Good afternoon. That's a lovely presentation.
Thank you.
And, oh no, I don't need a mic for this one. So, I noticed that, a lot of that we're concentrating on is sun, sand, and seas, like physical resource. But there's a common thread with the Elon Musk, Virgin person, we can't say his name, Branson, and also Dubai. There's a common thread that they all have that we are not capitalizing in this country, which is the development of self. You talk about sun, sand, and sea. The Bahamians need to develop themselves in order to get to that point. You can have every single last resource in this world, but if you don't have the drive to do it, if you, as we say, get in your own way, nothing is ever going to happen. So I have heard again and again, oh, we're gonna include the children, bring them up. You would encourage them to go to school and then come back. But if us as the adults don't make the environment conducive for them to come back, they are not going to come back. Or if they come back, they're going to become bitter because when they come back, they cannot function. They see dysfunction and they look out of the world where they came from and they say, oh, we're not going to come back. So I think perhaps for the presentation, if we add a component of self and advocate for us as a people to develop our own innovation, develop our innovative side, develop our creative side, develop our basically being being firm with ourselves and being self-disciplined. If we have self-discipline, we as a country will be further. Right now, I don't see the self-discipline. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So you just added the 4th S. Thank you. So that's the question, because I didn't mind me responding, but I will tell you the self is a personal and a collective responsibility, and it starts from the home. So remember one of the things in my bio says I'm an avid reader, and people wonder why I read all the time. That's because I don't know. But if I go in an average household, how many households have libraries? I'm just saying. How many of us as parents are reading and the children see you reading? That doesn't happen as much as you think. So in the schools, is another question, why aren't reading one of those requirements? But you're reading something, and this is where it is a challenge, that is relevant to you. That's just something we need to think about, because the things I'm reading are things I'm passionate about. I don't read about stuff that is of no interest to me. So all of us need to discover, and maybe it's a way in which we can look at education and say, because I had a thought that says, what if education was this kind of a tool? Wherever the student is at, let's say you love music, and I designed their education around music. So I have to facilitate you in your learning based on what you love, not the other way around. So if you do that for every student, you discover in music, you learn history, geography, physics, math, right? Because you have to count notes. You learn all the subject matters from the thing that you love. Because if you listen to these young people who talk about basketball, they can give you stats, They can give you people's names, they can give you the history of the sport, they're giving you all those things because this is a subject that they love. And they're reading all the time. It's just something for us to think about.
Any other questions?
Very good presentation, Mr. Diggis.
Thank you.
Very much. I want to draw reference to this slide, Altoro wind energy system. Could you go back to that so we can look at that a little bit more? That's very interesting.
One
wave
with the thing
energy.
standing up straight. No. It was like
This is the aqua, the Altoro.
Altoro. They had like big
Oh,
panels in the ocean.
Wave.
In the ocean, that's the one with the egg shape.
No, it's a diagram.
Like the pool or something, I think it does. Yeah.
oh,
It's like a cutout of the ocean. I think that was the-
Yeah.
oh, the cut of the ocean.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
that's.
that was the
Yeah,
Altoro.
that's
right.
Oh, it's that one. Yes, the wave action. Altoro.
Could you explain that one?
So these are panels that are embedded below the ocean, and they move to create movement of the water.
Energy.
So it forces the water to create waves. And through that wave action, they capture the energy. But we don't have to do that because we got waves all the time.
But you said that developers desalination.
Well, because they use that as a way to extract the water from the ocean in order to run the desalination plant. It could be the energy, yeah, the wave is captured to energy. Now, what you do with the energy is up to you. You can divert it to many different uses.
You know, the waves causing the panel to move, which generates energy to feed the desalination plant.
That is-
That too.
Yeah, but they could also be panels that you mechanically move to create the waves.
Then you have to feed those energy to the
Yes,
panel to move.
yeah, but it becomes self-sustaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Yaklo, it's like a wind turbine. You know how they normally have like a little motor or generator that keeps the wind turbine moving at a certain speed, because at a certain speed is when the energy is being created. So in this case here, it's obvious that they're using the panels to create the wave, which is going to create the energy. But by creating a wave, you know, if you drop a stone in the water, you see that ripple. So by creating a wave, and you see it hitting against the ocean, that's gonna, I mean, the seabed there, that's gonna actually create another wave that's gonna bounce back. So it's almost like a loop that you are creating that has to start from someplace, which is the panel, and then they just use the energy that's created to desalinize the water. Mr. Somerville.
And guess what?
Correct, Mr. Energy is not created. It's transformed.
Transform.
It's transformed. And guess what?
Thank you, sir.
And guess what? And guess what? What just happened? It's how knowledge is supposed to grow.
Amen.
It's not held by one person.
Yeah.
It's through a conversation and a dialogue that the information actually becomes expanded. Knowledge is never a depleted resource. So you should get away from hoarding. I don't know why in school they used to tell you hoard. That is so anti-knowledge. Knowledge is about sharing.
Yes.
And as you share it actually becomes even greater. That's why the internet is such a powerful tool. You could, and in fact, young people, you all have no excuse. The libraries are coming to you. I remember in school we had to go physically to the library. So you have no excuse for not reading, not learning. It's a self thing, I agree with you. But you have to find what you love and your passion and make that take you to where it will take you, whatever that is.
So Mr. Somerville, anything to add? Any other questions to the floor? All right, seeing as we have no further questions, I would like to invite Acting Chief Architect, I think I got it right this time, Tim Johnson, to the podium to bring the vote of thanks. And I appreciate nobody calling me out on that last time.
That's okay. Tim is okay. My mom called me Tim when I was born. So that's the name that will stick. Indeed, I want to confess, and my apologies, I caught basically the end of the presentation. So I want to thank you for coming, and even in the small portion. Indeed, it was a tremendous inspiration, provocative, as well as informing and inspiring. One of the things that we are given the responsibility to do is indeed be managers of the nature that we have. We were born in the Bahamas and no other place. And so for that mere fact, we are responsible to manage the Bahamas and create its resources and use the resources. You know, there's a scripture that says, "Oh, much is given, much is required." Indeed, we're here for a certain time, a certain period. Much is given to the Bahamas. Indeed, this very little, small archipelago is responsible for changing this world. Amen. We don't have to import ideas. Indeed, whatever we have right now can be useful to turn around our country. We appreciate men like you, sir, for taking your time out of your busy schedule to impart to this nation. Indeed, it's a challenge to this ministry. It was a challenge. I saw the challenge that you've given to us, that we must be planners of our infrastructure, planners of the Bahamas, and I would hope that we would take that initiative sitting here today. It doesn't matter our age, what age you're at, we can take what is being sown here today and use it to turn around, not just the ministry of works, but really our country. With that, on behalf of our minister, who is so well able and willing to push this distinguished lecture series, our permanent secretary, Ms. Thompson, our director, Ms. Madeline Roach, as well as our deputy director, and all of the other leaders, in particular, our distinguished lecture series leader, Mrs. Senior QS, Elise Fernand. We want to say thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, and we believe that today will be a day of change, because in order for change to happen, we must become the change we want to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. At this time, any comments? So, you know, we were challenged.
You never ask a politician that question. Thanks so much for speaking to us.
You're welcome.
You touched so many things that I reflected on for so many years. And really, you spoke to us about culture. Culture captures everything. 27 years ago, when I left the Attorney General's office, I decided I would never ever work in the public service again. Now, this is not for any of you. Stay where you are, I can't point you out there. But the challenge was that the culture was intractable. We couldn't make change. And that's one of the reasons why I love this ministry so much, because when you see architects and engineers, they're all about change. They're all about cutting edge and making a difference, and looking at how we do things differently. And that's one of the things that we want to challenge each other. But in our culture in the Bahamas, and for everyone who travels, we have and you hit on it quite a bit here, we have a culture of dependence, and we are not looking to change as many things as we can change. And so when you spoke today, I went back to this issue of culture, because I remember as Minister of Education, when Qatar started the awards for education, we started awards for innovation in education. And I went to Qatar, and then I came back home, and I went in all of my schools just trying to find areas where teachers had innovated and changed, where they'd gone into Baintang or one of the other communities that were traditionally disadvantaged, and created new programs that were where we could find things that were different. And I couldn't find innovation in schools that I wanted to put forward for that award. So I'm hoping that what you said today is going to inspire us to be innovators, to change, to think differently, to think that that Newton Key Bridge could look different, to think that that Stanley Creek Bridge could be different, that we could utilize that in some way perhaps to create energy, do something different, that we can, because there is tremendous tidal flow, to think that the projects that we do can make a difference in our communities. That's what I like about the professions that we have, and I'm not leaving the quantity surveyors out. Professions that we have in this ministry, that we can think on the cutting edge, we can think to make a difference. And so I really sat there impressed by your presentation, and I really want to thank you on behalf of the ministry board. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Minister. Before we close out, I'd like to invite everybody to look underneath their chairs. Fortunately, it's only one. We gave away one earlier.
Can I say something I forgot to mention earlier?
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Diggis, there was another S in your presentation that you didn't touch on much. Right? I mean, you're proposing that you're suggesting that we could utilize our natural resources for a lot of things in unique ways. But just a word of caution, we need to utilize natural resources in an eco-friendly way. And the last S that you had is the sustainability part that you didn't touch on.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We need to utilize it in a
Agreed. Thank you.
Did y'all check all the chairs?
Yes.
You sure?
I checked mine.
It wouldn't be any of the chairs that we had marked reserved, just as a hint. Any chair that was marked reserved wouldn't be any of that. She was here early too, and she sort of saw where the other prize that we gave to Ms. Frazier was. And so we elected just to give the one to Ms. Frazier, hoping that we give the room a fair chance at getting the prize. But congratulations. So you see, coming early has its rewards. All right, so please don't forget, the lecture series is between the hours of 12 and 1 every Thursday here at the Herring Room, Physical Planning. So keep that in mind, folks. I notice next week's topic.
That's a tough. Okay.
That would be former Minister of Works, Mr. Earl DeVoe, and he'll be speaking to the environment and sustainability, as you would have said, Mr. Yucklow. So we might just see some of that fourth or fifth S that you were talking about next week. So right now, I would like to invite Minister, PS Director, Mr. Diggis, and the committee to come up for our usual photo op at the end of this lecture series.